Hi, thank you. There's an old joke. Really, Giles? Yes, I'm afraid so. There's an old joke. A man finds himself on a country track in an unfamiliar place, and he comes to a crossroads. There are no road signs, no landmarks, he can't get a signal on his mobile phone, and he's completely lost. But he sees a tractor driven by an old man bumping slowly towards him, and he waves, and the tractor gets closer, and the old man looks at him, and he looks at the old man, and pulls up. He says, "Hi, I'm trying to get to Middleton. Which is the best way, please?" The man looks at him. He looks down one path, then the other. And he gives him a pitying look. "Sonny," he says, "if you're trying to find the best way to Middleton, you shouldn't start here." All roadmaps start in the wrong place. We don't have the right technology, we don't have the right skills, we don't have the right budget. It's what happens next that's interesting. And let's take an example. And since this is a design conference, then we'd better have an example from Apple, right? So let's think about Apple Pay. Back in 2001, Apple included an application on the Mac called Keychain. Keychain allowed your Mac to store passwords on a Wi-Fi network or for an email server securely. And so long as you're logged into your Mac, all those passwords are automatically entered for you. It's still there today. If you look in the System Utilities folder on your Mac, there it is. Most people never touch it. In 2007, when Apple created the iPhone, they included Keychain. So far, so dull. If you were going to make a big play in financial services, you wouldn't want to start here. In 2011, Apple launched Icloud, which synced various bits of data between your Mac and your iPhone, and that included Keychain, which is nice. So now if your Mac knows about a Wi-Fi network, then you don't need to retype that password on your fiddly little iPhone. Great. Apple starts to add more and more stuff to Keychain. Website passwords, your address, credit card details, all of that can be automatically filled in web forms, so you're learning to store payment details on your device. And then in 2013, Apple adds Touch ID to the iPhone 5S. Now you can have longer, stronger passwords on your iPhone, where you keep all of those important details. And unlocking your phone securely takes a split second and almost no effort. This is good. And then the next year, Apple included NFC contactless technology in the iPhone 6, and it launches Apple Pay. And you can add a credit card to your phone, tap on it with any contactless payment device, and authorize the payment with a fingerprint. Within 2 years, that service is growing at 1 million users per week. And other companies, banks, retailers, technology firms, tried and failed to deliver something similar. Apple managed to create the world's most popular digital payment system, beginning with a dull system utility. Now, that's a simplification. I don't know how things looked at Apple. I do know there was more going on than that. And Apple said at the time that Apple Pay was something they'd been working on for years. But even when you look at this simplified view, you get a sense of what a product roadmap is and how it gets you from where you don't want to be to where everyone wishes they could be. It isn't a big bang release. There's a multi-year plan in place. The issues are being solved in a sensible sequence. Start with passwords, move on to payments. Users are getting something of increasing value at each step, and the business is getting something valuable too. Each release has a business benefit to it, whether it's product differentiation, like with Touch ID, or a revenue-generating service like Icloud. There's an evolution of the business model. And technical and operational challenges are being solved one by one. When I look at that, what amazes me is the discipline involved, because it takes discipline to keep your focus for years. And a lot of people I talk to complain that their organization only lets them do quick wins or low-hanging fruit. Big ideas are just too risky. The organization lacks the confidence or the courage or the coordination to embark on something ambitious and demanding. And if they finally do get to do those big programs of work, then it's just endless grind. One of those projects that goes on for years and never actually gets to deliver anything. Apple's roadmap combines that discipline with a regular delivery of something valuable. That's what a great roadmap looks like. The other thing you find is that when you're dealing with any kind of plans for the future, people get anxious. We dislike uncertainty, even though the world is full of it, and the future is nothing but uncertainty. We try to get rid of uncertainty as soon as possible, rather than just waiting for things to get a bit more certain. And that causes people to behave in all sorts of weird ways, and those ways tend to undermine product and UX teams. So if we're going to get from here to there, I think we need three things. Something to give us direction, a way to maintain focus while we deliver, and a technique for dealing with all that weirdness. So if you're going to lead people into that uncertain and difficult future, they need to believe in your vision. You're sending them to a destination that doesn't exist yet. And if they don't believe in your vision, then they're just going to creep forward with those quick wins. Getting people to buy into that vision is hard work. And most places I visit, there's only surface agreement. Ask around, and you find that everyone's got their own pet project, and they're just waiting for this one to fail so that they can push their own idea. And there are so many opportunities. Well, how do you even know which is the right one? Well, a while back, a team came to me with that problem, and they'd been working for a financial services firm, looking at how they could help people whose investments were coming to maturity, but they had stakeholders, and at least one of whom was pushing his pet project before they'd even finished their discovery phase. And they had a presentation looming, and they were feeling that stakeholder anxiety in a number of ways, and they needed to get buy-in, but in truth, they didn't even have a vision. So they'd set themselves this question, which I think is a pretty good question for a discovery phase. What's the best opportunity? It allowed them to kind of go broadly and deeply across the whole thing and to explore widely. And they'd done their user research and competitive analysis and stakeholder interviews, and they'd assembled what they'd found, and they'd mapped it all out from the start to the finish of the user journey. And they created an experience map like this one. A map like this is a huge database of findings, arranged to let you analyze things in a structured, methodical way. And the best person in the world to talk to about this would be Indy Young, who happens to be here today. If you can't talk to her, read her book. I'll give you the details later. But I'm being gentle with you here, because experience maps are big databases, and they tend to end up looking something like this. And I know what you're thinking. This is really a tool for researchers who are deep in the detail. This isn't an output that you want to share with the rest of the organization. But with a map like this, you can identify all kinds of opportunities. So you can look for gaps where no one's supporting users, and shortfalls where competitors are doing a better job, and pain points where everyone is getting it wrong. And also for places where regulation or technology is about to change, and the service needs to change with it. Each of those things is an opportunity, and behind each of those things is a user story. And anytime you like, you can go back to the map and you can look at that user story and get all of this rich data around it. That's amazing if you're doing design discovery. So you get a number of user stories like this, and that's what this team had. And whenever somebody suggested a feature, we should alert people via our app, they'd say maybe, and they'd write down the user story. But it's user stories like this that they captured, and they had 36 of these things. And none of these things are really a product. They're not even features yet. They're opportunities, quick wins mostly. So there's no vision here. There's nothing that will inspire. And there's no strategy. There's no way of telling what to do and what to ignore. And if you're not careful, this is the point where that senior stakeholder comes in and says, because the world needs another one of those. And another senior stakeholder was saying, well, we've got a list of stuff here. What I want is business cases for each one of these so we can choose what to do. And a lot of roadmaps look like that. A prioritized list of problems to solve. Or worse, a prioritized list of features to deliver. No vision. We just pick the low-hanging fruit, and right at the end is the complicated stuff. We never really get to the interesting bits. And some of these things are obviously small fixes, and some of them are slightly bigger ideas. Nothing really big, there rarely is. So the team and I were discussing this problem, and we talked about the opportunities, and we did a clustering exercise to see what was really there. And when you come to do that, there's a number of lenses that you can apply. Which lenses you apply depends on the situation. So some organizations have a clear mission or a rock-solid brand definition, and others have nothing written down. Some have obvious structural changes that are shaping the landscape. It might be open banking or new ways of working, or our customers are shifting to mobile. Other times, those things seem to be marginal. Discovery should be about finding out about those lenses. And if you look at only one, then you're in trouble. But often, you'll lead with the customer lens. You're a UX person, That's probably where you have the best data, and since organizations exist to serve their customers or users, that can be a powerful lens to use. In this particular case, we knew the organization was focused on certain types of customer, and we had good data on what those customers wanted, so we began to cluster and sort the cards. And we got 4 clusters, 3 big themes, and 1 collection of other stuff, small fixes, improvements that weren't part of a larger theme, business as usual stuff. We handed that off to the business as usual team for maintenance work. But those themes were exciting, and there was real value for customers, and there were real opportunities for the business to differentiate itself from competitors. And there were also technical and organizational challenges, some of which we understood from our discovery phase. So we came up with descriptions for those themes, and one of those themes was a dashboard. Thank you, you're very clever, but it wasn't the only theme. We had 3 different themes, 3 paths, and not yet an answer to this question. Well, being the best means different things for different people. It could mean being the one that minimizes effort and risk, or it could mean the one that's most valuable to customers, or it could mean the one that's most valuable to the business. If you're going to deliver a great product, you need a vision and story that covers all 3. A good business model is one where the customer and the business both get value, and the business is playing to its strengths, or learning something learnable. So we rated the themes on all 3 factors. And we used a very simple scoring exercise based on the evidence we'd uncovered in discovery. Those are the 3 questions you'd ask in a business case. Would people want this? How would we recoup our investment? Can we fix it? But we only had a little knowledge. We had a shallow, broad knowledge from the discovery phase. So instead of calculating return on investment, we just gave things a rating: red, amber, green. And there you go. Theme 3 was a wonderful idea, but there was this massive legal and technical barrier. It just wasn't going to be overcome in any realistic period of time. Theme 2 was the dashboard, which was kind of okay for customers, kind of okay to do, kind of okay business value. Not dead, but not winning. And theme 1 was great for the customer, great for the business, and there was a moderate degree of complexity, the winner. So out of all of those opportunities, we'd distilled down the ones that could really take us somewhere. Not just the low-hanging fruit, but something with a story behind it. And we were ready to present. But we thought, well, before we present this, we'll run our stakeholders through our thinking. So we just walked them through the wall that we'd put together. And they said, oh, we love this. We agree. Do that. You don't need to do the presentation. Just tidy this up a bit. Because they didn't need rankings or business cases, even though they thought they did, even though that's what they'd asked for. What they needed was that vision, and they needed a story, and that's what we gave them. It's funny, but the thing that's often missing from roadmaps is that vision statement. You can use an elevator pitch or a storyboard like this one, or a prototype, or all 3 of those. But since half of what you're trying to do is get people pointing in the same direction, I think half of your roadmap should be about the big vision statement. It seems really obvious. Like, oh, we don't need to include that. There's more detail here that we need to get into. But this frames what you're trying to do. It keeps conversation at the right level. The other half of the roadmap is the plan, right? And there's another trap here. The problem with cunning plans is there are just too many things that can go wrong. Your roadmap isn't really a place for planning. It's a place for focus. It's a place for engaging with the entire organization so that each department can understand what role they have to play in this bigger goal. And it's a place for making sure that first things are dealt with first. That much of planning does need to be done. This is where we're going, and this is what we've got to deal with right now. So it shouldn't look like a normal plan, no matter what anyone else tells you. When I work with teams, their instinct is often to create a Gantt chart showing when features will be released. And even when I warn people against doing this, they sometimes come back and say, well, I thought about it, I decided what I needed was a Gantt chart. And then they get into problems, arguments over release dates, botched implementations, sliding back into delivering prioritized lists of features, and soon the vision is gone. And you're just doing quick wins and grabbing the low-hanging fruit. That's not what a roadmap is. It's a place for focus. It's a place for saying, here's where we're going, and this is the thing we're doing next. So I think it should look something like this. Each phase is defined in less and less detail. The future, the further out you look, is mistier and grayer. So we're not going to make promises that we can't fulfill. We're not going to say things that we don't understand yet. Each phase has got a theme so that people understand what that phase is for, what they're trying to do. It gives meaning to what you're looking at. In this case, the themes are set direction, build capability, deliver at scale. But your themes could be something different. And as you move along, scope is a bit looser because you're less certain about what you need to do. Goals are more loosely defined, timelines are looser. The only timeline, I think, that should be tightly defined is the current phase, this release. I learned a few years ago that 3 months is the maximum length of project for the kind of the kind that I work on. Longer than that, and people just start to lose focus. It just seems to be something that will happen in the future and they can get around to it when they can. So I tend to set 3-month limits on a phase, and less than 6 weeks, and it's hard to do something of value. So I make the current phase no more than 3 months in length. Now your mileage may vary, and you'll need to find that number. But the only phase with a deadline on it is the current one. None of this is a project plan. Project planning needs to happen elsewhere, in your sprint planning, with your project planning document. The purpose of this, the reason you gather teams around this, is to focus on the long-term goal and remind ourselves what's important right now. And when you're drawing up this document, you're constantly bringing in stakeholders and asking them this question. You're trying to figure out what problems need to be solved in each phase. It's a tool for discussion and coordination and buy-in. My advice is get lots of input, more than you'd like. Input equals understanding and buy-in. Input reinforces the goal in people's minds. And because it's a plan, you'll constantly discover new things and you'll need to return to it and ask those questions again and again. But as you do that, you get to something like this, a phased approach with a vision at each phase, a sense of customer value, the business value, and the challenges that each team will face along the way. Let the project planning happen in the sprint planning meetings on a different document. So we have a vision, and we have a phased delivery that helps us maintain our disciplined focus. I think, though, that we're in danger of getting obsessed with deliverables, because really what matters is that discipline. Really what matters, it has nothing to do with documents or laying post-its on a wall. It's the problem of maintaining alignment, because from day one, team members will start to wobble, and they need to be brought back into alignment. In his brilliant book, The Advantage, Patrick Lencioni says the one thing that sets great organizations apart is that ability to remain aligned. Your roadmap is a visual reminder to help with that. But Lencioni says alignment really begins with trust and honesty. And unfortunately, that means that having the confidence to step into uncomfortable situations of conflict, which is something we all hate doing. Your marketing director is demanding the feature list for the next 2 releases. The CEO has come up with a new direction for the product, and he's worked in this industry for 30 years, so he just knows it will work. You don't need to research this. Your IT director tells you a vital piece of infrastructure is not a priority for her. You need to be able to call out broken promises, unreasonable requests, without fear or blame. So this amazing book, Crucial Confrontations, shows you how to walk into situations that would normally be an argument or a put down or a conflict weakly avoided and turn them into positive discussion. And it points out the first person we have to deal with in that situation is actually ourselves. We have to master our own stories. You're probably telling yourself a story about the other person. They're an idiot, they're disruptive, they're interfering. And if you walk in with that attitude, there isn't really room for discussion. There's no room for cooperation. One of you is right, one of you is wrong. You're both going to end up trying to prove that you're the best. Or you avoid it and things break down in other ways. Mastering your stories means starting by finding the reasonable explanation for the other person's behavior and also figuring out what you want from the situation. So you're walking in there with a kind of an open-minded, I think this is what's going on, how can we figure this out attitude. If you think back to most of the problems that we've seen, they're kind of due to stakeholder anxiety, asking for too much certainty too early, throwing out ideas to fill the uncertainty gap. Chances are the person who's being difficult when it comes to your roadmap is feeling anxious. And the story you want to go in with is, here's a person who feels anxious about the future. You need to help them find a way to manage that anxiety. And you need to make it safe for them to tell you their problem, their side of the story. So you show that you share the same goals, the ones on your roadmap. We're both trying to get this product delivered and do an amazing job. And you need to show them that you've given thought about their position. And I know you've got to deliver a marketing launch plan, and we both need that to go well. And then you can describe the problem. I'm trying to manage an uncertain delivery process, and there are some promises I just can't make, like when that feature will be delivered. So how can we support you without making promises that could blow up in our faces? Focusing on goals, shared goals, makes it easier and safer for you to recognize disagreement and work together on the way forward. I think the real skill is in how you have those conversations without blame and avoidance. So I came to talk about roadmaps, but I think what we're really talking about here is leadership, not the my way or the highway kind, but the kind that engages and aligns and includes. Now you might say, well, I'm not senior enough to be that leader, but leadership isn't about seniority. I see lots of senior people in organizations who don't lead, and I'm sure you do too. And I see lots of junior people who propel teams forwards. It's not about seniority. And you might say, well, in my organization, it's really marketing who lead, but they don't see the whole picture. UX sits at an intersection. You see more, which means you can influence more. And you might say, well, I'm afraid I don't know anything. And you know what? Yes, that's right. But here's the secret. No one knows anything. William Goldman wrote The Princess Bride, and he won Oscars for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and he said this terrific thing. His point being, there are plenty of people in Hollywood who thought they knew exactly what would make a hit movie, or they pretended that they knew. And there are plenty of people who will ask for things that they don't really need. And if you listen to them, you're giving up on your own ideas. You're giving up on your chance to lead people to a better destination. I think people here have the skills to lead people into that uncertain future. And I hope you do. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, bear with us. I did write your question down. I think most people in this room have probably kind of dealt with those situations and stuff that you've talked about. And I think going forwards, it's probably going to be a constant thing that we've got to work towards in the future as well. I don't think it's anything that's ever going to go away. So if you were to do a call to arms for people working in or around user-centered design today, what would it be?
A call to arms for people working. You know, I think what matters in any organization, organizations exist to serve their customers, to serve their users. And organizations tend to lose their way when the organization's goals become somehow decoupled from the goals of the user. I think we're absolutely crucial at fixing what's broken in a lot of organizations, fixing business models that that don't support user goals, business models that support revenue generation over customer satisfaction. Well, there's a problem there, and that organization is going to break. It's going to hit a regulatory barrier, or it's going to hit a financial barrier, and it's just going to fall apart. Somebody is going to come along and take it apart. We can fix that, and we can make organizations that aren't businesses work better for their customers, whether that's third sector or public sector. I think we have an amazing skill set. I think we're absolutely at the heart of solving problems. And as that feedback loop between customer and organization gets faster and faster, thanks to the technology we work in, that challenge becomes more and more important. So yeah, there's a call to arms there. What we do is absolutely about making the world a better place.
Yeah. Is there any spaces that you haven't worked in that you would like to in the future, personally? Either kind of industry verticals or kind of public or private sector? Is there anything specific that you would like to work in and make a difference?
I'm really lucky to have been working in this industry for a long time, and I've worked in most sectors. I think the frontier, and I think the thing that's really interesting that's happening is that with each generation of our work, we get involved in a bigger and bigger stage. So where it was usability work, it's become product design, it's become service design, and I think we're on the verge of ecosystem design, where you're not working for one organization, you're trying to coordinate organizations around really complicated human problems. Problems like, so it's not just about working for a train company, it's actually about solving more complex problems like mobility, or well-being, or pollution. And you can see those dots starting to be joined, and organizations starting to come together around that. So I think that's where the interesting boundary of practice is. And I think rather than it being a particular sector or vertical, it's those sorts of challenges. How do you align value across something as big and complicated as that I'm really interested in?
So, posing a similar question that I did to Vim, cxpartners is wildly successful and well known, and the work that you've done has been really important. What would you want your legacy to be?
People, I think. What's always exciting is, and when I look at think about the organizations I admire, they're organizations where you can see not only do they continue to do great work, but also the people that move on from them go places and carry that elsewhere. And that's one of the reasons I love coming to events like this incredible event, is because it's really about spreading the word about what we do, and sharing that knowledge.
Thank you very much, Giles. Give Giles a round of applause.
Thank you.